Welcome to Stretford Paddock. This is Paddock Live. I'm joined by Alex Bagley, and we've got a pretty hefty update on exactly what is going on with the European Super League. How are you doing?
Not bad. There's just more and more.
It just keeps pouring out, doesn't it?
Yeah,
whenever you think the well is dry, it keeps pumping out more and more shite at the moment.
With the obviously the press conferences for the games coming up as well. So we're going to talk about Pep Guardiola speaking out a little bit. There's been rumours about the captains going to get together. Mm-hmm. Also, more official statements than we can count.
Then you can shake a stick at.
You can shake a stick at coming out from the Premier League, from all the different clubs. So we're going to have a little bit more of an in-depth look at them. But it's constant at the minute. It's constantly looking at it. This is the news. I did the news this morning at Old Trafford. You know, there was actually something about Haaland yesterday that got said, and literally the opening line of the article was, "We're going to say this, but I know nobody cares," and that is the point of everything at the minute. No one really cared about the football last night. They got played. No one's really looking at the Premier League games that are playing this week. No one's even looking forward to the Cup final this weekend. This is the news, and this is what everyone's looking at this moment in time. Yeah,
it's pretty unanimous, isn't it? This is the story, and how could it not be? It's the first story. Certainly, I wasn't around when the Premier League was founded. This is the biggest, most fundamental change and sort of attack on football that I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah,
so how could it not be the only story at the moment?
No, it's a complete change. It's everyone not really knowing the unknown a little bit about it. I think that's, even the managers will go into what Pep said today. That the big thing is that he doesn't know what's going to happen. He doesn't know what's going to be the repercussions for all this in terms of the Premier League, in terms of European competition, and all these different things. There's the unknown. And we kind of just mentioned this then. Callum actually said this on the way to do the news this morning. It kind of feels a little bit about same as last year. Same as when the COVID stuff was happening, where we were just going, we need to talk about this. What's going to happen? We don't know is this the end of the world? Is this the end of people going to games? Is this the end of that? It feels like that, but instead of it being a disease that, looks like they can control and might even be short term, this is something that could be, there's rumours it's 23 years they've signed up to. So this is the future of football forever kind of thing.
And the mad thing is, it's not like we haven't even been back in stadiums. No. I know some fans have, but the majority of fans, and United fans, especially at home, unless anyone snuck into I think it was Everton away that there was fans in. No one's even seen a game of football since COVID. It's just been one thing after another. And now, just as things look like they might be getting back to normal, all hell breaks loose. Let's get into it then. Let's get into...
We've got a super chat there. What's worse, COVID or the Super League?
Let's be honest, COVID.
COVID is worse.
COVID is worse because Super League doesn't kill millions of people.
But in terms of how it's going to change football...
Yeah, the long-term effects on football... I guess you could say one goes hand in hand with the other because some of the stuff Perez was saying last night.
There's a couple of people saying get a grip. That's not. I don't think that's in terms of the impact this is going to have on football. COVID has done a lot less for how football is going to change than what the Super League will.
But of course, COVID is a lot worse.
Let's
get into this statement then from the Premier League, and this is our first story today. So we've got Premier League statement. The Premier League have released a statement following their meeting this afternoon, and this was the 14 clubs not currently tied in to the European Super League that met today and discussed where they're going to go with things. They've come out and said the Premier League, alongside the FA, met with clubs today to discuss the immediate implications of the Super League proposal. The 14 clubs at the meeting unanimously and vigorously rejected the plans for the competition. The Premier League is considering all action available to prevent it from progressing, as well as holding those shareholders involved to account under its rules. The league will continue to work with key stakeholders, including fan groups, the government, UEFA, the FA, the EFL, which is obviously the English Football League, the PFA, which is the Players Football League, and the LMA, which is the Managers League, for anyone who doesn't know, to protect the best interests of the game and call on those clubs involved in the proposed competition to cease their involvement immediately. The Premier League would like to thank fans and stakeholders for the support they have shown this week on this significant issue. The reaction just proves how much our open pyramid and football community means to people. And I think that's a good point at the bottom. Most of it kind of echoes what we've already seen from the FA. We saw it a couple of days ago when they first kind of responded to this whole unequivocal, this is not happening, we will fight this at every point we can. The bit at the bottom there, this reaction just proves how much our open pyramid and football community means to people. I think that what is happening here, what we're trying to do, what everyone on social media is trying to do, it's not just us. There's all sorts of people banding together, broadcasters coming together and sort of declaring themselves against this. I think if anything's going to make a difference, pushing the point and keep going will maybe make the difference, because there's already rumours coming out that some of the owners are starting to worry now because they didn't expect this as much of an outcry as there has been. They thought, people will go, oh, that's a shame, but at least we get to see United Real Madrid. No one's saying that. And would you say that that's probably the best chance we have of getting this turned around?
I think so. I think that the outcry from fans and everything and across the board, I think that the outcry from the managers and managers and players and stuff will also be really key to all this. And I think that the thing with the Super League is they will come out with something that says, do you know what? We'll pay money down towards these other clubs and things like that. We'll make sure that those clubs are looked after, and we'll make sure that grassroots is looked after, and the Super League will pay £150 million a year into grassroots. They're going to come out with all this kind of bullshit that says we're going to look after things. But I think that the fact that everyone's realising, even the top clubs are I've not heard one fan go, well, we're going to make loads of money here. Because look, if you step back and look at this kind of sorts out everything about the Glazers. The Glazers aren't going to spend money, but they're going to get an extra £300 million a year. They're going to spend maybe a little bit more on players. We might get a few better players and all this kind of stuff. That's kind of gone out the window. There's not one person going, well, this might get us Haaland. Those kind of things that only a week ago we were going, that's the most important thing. Yeah. Everyone's thrown that out the window. Everyone's kind of gone, it's not that. No. It's the going to the games. It's the competitiveness. It's the fact that if things go wrong, we do drop down. We don't want any guarantees. For as much as we want Manchester United to play in the Champions League every season, the guarantee of it defeats the purpose of it. That final game last year against Leicester, that little bit of elation that we had for we're in the Champions League again. We're going to be playing the big teams. We're going to have all that stuff. That went. That's going to go. Yep. And I think that's been the important thing, is that everyone's looked at that. Everyone's looked at the importance of it, how it will affect the Championship, how it will affect the EFL, and all these clubs that do get it, how it'll affect the FA Cup. I
was going to say, even the FA Cup and the League Cup, at the minute, I think if you win either of those, isn't it, that you're in the Europa League. Whereas that, obviously that's gone. Or if it is, it's, the Europa League continues as some competition that doesn't have any of the main teams in it. Obviously the Champions League, the same thing. It completely affects and completely ruins everything.
And little bits of, do you really think that these top six teams are going to play in the FA? Are they going to risk playing in the FA Cup when they've got this Super League to play in, when all that money is towards there? They're not going to risk that. And that means that if they don't play, Emirates doesn't sponsor the FA Cup without those six teams.
No.
Carabao doesn't sponsor the League Cup. There's no money anymore in there, which means that it's less.
Who's going to watch it?
At the end, who's going to watch it? So now that gem of those Chorley playing Wolves this year, where Chorley could have played Manchester United, and that could have made their decade. That could have made Chorley's massive thing, for the players, but the income they would have got from the TV and all that kind of stuff, that still got that little bit of magic. That goes. Yeah. That goes when United aren't, because there's already a bit of, we're tossing off the FA Cup and stuff. If you have it where it really doesn't matter, and United's elite 20 players that are getting paid $500,000 a week, they're not going to play in those because they have to be looked after to go to Qatar the week later to go and play against Real Madrid. That's what happens, and there's no money in that anymore, and that drips down, and people noticing that and people talking about that and not just saying, well, it's a different Champions League, is the important bit and is the only way that this kind of stops.
And I think that comes from the threats and the claims that UEFA and the FA and the Premier League have made. The fact that they are so staunchly against it, and that you're not playing in this, you're not going to these tournament, you're not going to be playing for your national team anymore. They have to do that because otherwise, like you said, well, it's just a different Champions League. Well, it's not, and they have to prove that it's not. Let's move on because for once on this channel, I think we're going to unanimously, maybe metaphorically, for the sake of people's ears, give Pep Guardiola a round of applause, because he's been I know Klopp made a few comments yesterday that were pretty good, but to me, some of it felt like it was, what can I say, what can't I say? Pep Guardiola's come out and really slammed this, hasn't he? He's done the thing that, and again, give some credit to Klopp as well. I'm not trying to knock what he said, but no one else, a manager in one of these teams had come out and said something quite so abrupt towards one of the Super League itself. So let's get into what Pep said. He said, Pep Guardiola has hammered plans for the European Super League by strongly stating that sport is not sport when it doesn't matter if you lose. The Manchester City manager tackled the issue head-on, confirming he only found out of the developments on Sunday and rebuked ringleaders for a lack of clarity. So he's come out in his pre-match press conference, isn't it? He said, it's not fair when one team fight to get to the top and cannot be qualified because it's just for a few teams. The right people have the obligation, the duty to clarify as soon as possible, clarify all around the world why these teams play and others do not. Ajax with 4 Champions Leagues, why are they not there? Everyone makes their decisions for their own interest. The Premier League looks at his interest, the UEFA looks at his. To arrive in that point, UEFA have failed. They have to communicate and be in touch before. But yeah, the main thing there, he's saying, it's not fair. Teams fight and then they can't be qualified because it's just for a few teams. He also said, for all of us managers, it's uncomfortable. Presidents can talk more clear on what's the idea for the future and where football is going to go. It is not yet breathing. It is an embryo that is not yet breathing. It's just a statement. Now, that's interesting because that suggests that to me, he's going, we can still stop this.
Yeah.
This isn't fully formed yet. This isn't here. This hasn't started. We can stop this. And the fact that he's come out and said, football is about competing, is about teams fighting and fighting and fighting to get to the top. And when you cut that out, you lose essentially what is football. Hopefully, this will be the start of other teams, other players, other managers who are part of this ESL group coming out and doing this. But you've got to, applaud him a little bit there for saying that.
There's definitely been a strong statement there. Like there's having him say all those things and kind of back against the Super League and especially the competitiveness of it. I think that's what to be honest, out of everything, the managers, that's the easiest thing for them to talk about right now is the fact that they want a competition. They don't want it just to be a nothing thing. They want a competition. They want it to be merit based. Mm-hmm. The one thing he kind of threw in there a little bit, and he kind of put a little caveat to that was UEFA. He kind of mentioned FIFA, a little bit about the Premier League and stuff like that. He's mentioned those, and he's mentioned the fact that they failed as well. And he's not just said, I'm happy with the old Champions League format and I'm happy with how things are going at the minute. I think that's the big thing. And I've seen Adam McCullough tweeting that a couple of times today saying that I think what people need to get through is that we're not just going to go, we're going to back UEFA. UEFA's plans these last few weeks have been dodgy as well. Like the thing that they released on Monday meant that Manchester United were going to be in the Champions League whether they qualified or not. That is also against this. That's not, they would have got away with that. They're going to get away with that a little bit because of how ridiculous this is. Yeah. But those little statements are horrendous. Yeah. And I think that he's agreed there that UEFA and FIFA have let people down. They've gone chasing the money. And this is the whole thing that I think he said is that everyone's looking after themselves. It's not about the greater good of football. And I think for as much as the Super League has gone to one end of the scale and gone ridiculous, but at the same time, so have UEFA, so have FIFA, so have the clubs. They've gone for one end of the scale. And I think that's where he's throwing that in there, saying we're not just going to do this. And I think that the clubs want more power. That's the big thing. They want more control. But how they get to that thing now, how they kind of manage to manage this situation is going to be interesting because it's not a case of we don't want this, we want this. Yep. We don't want either of those things. And that middle ground, I don't think it gets there because I don't think that because the Super League they're just so far ahead of everything. Just said, well, we'll just do it on our own. I don't think they need government backing. They don't need anything. They just they've got themselves. As long as they have people to play, they're happy. As long as these clubs are into it, that's it. It's done.
Well, it's worth mentioning something else. And there's a good Twitter thread before. It was Sporting Intel, Nick Harris, who tends to do a lot of sort of sporting intelligence stuff, sporting money stuff. And he was tweeting a little bit before, and I'll quote him here. And it's similar to, not really what Pep said, but it kind of continues that thing of, can they do this by themselves? And if so, where is the money coming from? Yeah. Because that's why they're doing this. We all sort of blindly accept that this will make money. Yeah. It will make more money. It will be worth it for these clubs. Well, Nick Harris on Twitter has a kind of a slightly different approach to things, a different opinion of things. So let me go through this thread, but it's very interesting in terms of where the money is coming from And will that money come the way that we kind of almost have just gone, yeah, the money's there, they're definitely going to make more money, so we've got to stop them. Maybe there's a bit of smokescreen stuff going on here. So he said, there's a lot of things wrong with the ESL, it's obvious, but the sticking purely to numbers, it doesn't even stack up. And the 6 English clubs who embarrassed themselves so cringingly with the statements should ask Joel Glazer to explain exactly where the money's coming from. He said, this fabled 3.5 billion euros worth of cash is going to be divided between the 15 clubs, 202 million pounds on day one. So this is what we've been hearing. First of all, just for joining, you're a founding member, 200 million. You're a founding member, 200 million. He said, A, do you think that's coming from a magic unicorn? Which obviously it's not. Or B, are you, as the owners of the European Super League, just lending this to yourselves? Because essentially, as he goes on, or maybe you think JP Morgan are gifting this 3.5 billion that they've said they're going to give, and you won't need to pay it back, which obviously isn't going to happen. So this money that JP Morgan are giving up front has to be paid back. Now, obviously, the way that this revenue is going to happen is through broadcasting. So he said, the Champions League, according to the latest official financial data, brings in UEFA around 3 billion euros annually, of which 2.4 billion comes from the media and broadcasting. He said Joel Glazer's numbers say that the ESL will have revenues of 5 billion, which maybe kind of makes sense. It's bigger teams, but it's still a 25-30% increase on what we're getting out of the Champions League. So the broadcasting will have to drive it. So this is the point. So where are the broadcasters or collective of broadcasters who will commit to perhaps 12 billion euros for a 3-year contract on this thing? When your product, maybe massively boycotted, is going to be affecting all of football. Already, you're making the broadcasters that have paid for the Premier League rights, like Amazon and Sky, to a lesser extent BT, but they've certainly paid for the Champions League rights. Yep. They're losing tons of money on this. Mm-hmm. So where's this money going to come from that's supposedly backing the whole thing? Like that is a question that needs asking, because you fucked Sky with this. Same with BT, Amazon to a lesser extent because they don't have as many games. But Sky have paid billions for the Premier League. And that product becomes completely diluted and completely devalued if Man United aren't in it, or if they're resting players for the Super League. Like, there are only so many broadcasters that can pay for this. I know they're talking about Disney and these other people. But if this is getting boycotted by managers, potentially players, certainly fans, there may be a difficulty in tying down broadcasters for the sort of money they're talking about. So potentially the finances, may be slightly more difficult than they're initially saying. Something to watch out for, and something I hadn't seen anywhere else. So Nick Harris, cheers for that. But it's certainly a point worth making, isn't it?
It's really interesting, the fact that these numbers have become plucked out, that JP Morgan who put 3.5 billion in for infrastructure, and that to me says that there's going to be neutral stadiums built somewhere, and I don't know where that is in the world, whether that's in the UK or is it's in Europe at all. Yep. It could be anywhere in the world. It could be in America. They could be building these kind of things. But like you said, where does that money come from? It has to be backed in some way. It has to be some kind of sponsorship, which at the minute, unless they've got agreements that we don't know about, they may have had things already tied in where people have said there is something like that. Amazon Prime Sport have tweeted that they aren't involved in the Super League broadcasting. Sky have obviously come out and said that they're not involved. BT, I don't think have officially, but Rio Ferdinand.
I don't think BT can afford to do this.
I don't think they can, but there's definitely been enough statements during their broadcast that would say that they're not going to be interested in it.
Yeah.
I think that it could potentially be their own thing. They could make their own subscription service.
But someone has to broadcast it. Someone has to film it. Someone, it has to be distributed.
But if they're spending 3.5 billion in infrastructure, they could spend 3.5 billion on camera equipment.
Online only?
Yeah.
I mean, good luck getting 500 billion back on that. 5 billion back on that.
I shared something today that in United's Infesta pack in 2016, they put out something that showed the viewing figures for the Premier League and the broadcast revenues, and they put I think the Premier League was about 70% of how they spent the money. The top two were the MLB, who were miles ahead, baseball and NBA.
Yeah, which is basketball.
The MLB are private. You literally pay. There's an MLB app that you just click on and do. They don't go onto national TV. And that could be, I think these Americans that are very clearly behind this have looked at that and gone, we are doing this. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to have our own streaming service. And that would be the interesting bit if they can do that and if people would pay for that. But like you said, those 3.5 billion numbers, the 6 billion that we're looking at. That's a lot of money to try and get back, and that is just, it's a horrendous, it's a ridiculous amount. Breaking news there. UEFA is preparing counter-attack on the Super League. UEFA is working with an English investment fund of over $6 billion financial package to overhaul the Champions League. Well,
yeah, this is coming out from the MEN. This is news breaking in the last 5 minutes from them. And I'll read the article here. Man United have been left dismayed as the club is among the 12 who have revealed plans to join the Super League. We know that. Where's the actual story about this? Because I don't want to get stuck in. This is Mohamed Bahafsi. He said UEFA is planning that. Counter-attack on the Super League. UEFA is working with English Investment Fund to come up with a new LOC that would have a starting budget of 4.5 billion, but could go up to 7 billion. So this is kind of drifting towards what some people suggested at the start. This may be a big play to make UEFA reform, to make UEFA change how they were doing things. And to me, here's the thing. There's two things to think here. Number one, at first everyone went, they're doing this to change what UEFA are doing. Come on, we're not stupid. And then everyone started going, shit, this feels real.
Yeah.
Now, if you are the Super League, you are the owners of these clubs, you have to make this seem plausible. Otherwise, UEFA won't react. UEFA won't skip a beat. They will go, shut up, what you're playing at. Carry on as we were. If this didn't feel scary, if this didn't feel likely, it's not a bluff. It's just, forget it. It has to feel, we all have to go, I know we thought it was a bluff, but it can't be anymore. You have to get to that point, otherwise the bluff didn't work. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we do sort of enter a territory where it was a bluff and they wanted this all along, but I still am not confident in saying that. I do still think that maybe this will happen, or that this could be very likely to happen, because, these people are clearly, the way Perez was talking last night about changing the length of football matches, to even suggest that, you have to be on another planet to almost every other person involved in football.
They all are on a different
So I'm
planet.
not saying that this won't happen at all. I think it very much could. But let's not forget, for a bluff to work, it has to be believable. Otherwise, no one's fooled. Yep. Right, we've got a few super chats coming in. We've got Christian Shea said, remember when they announced the director of football and the technical director? Yeah, Darren Fletcher sat in his office when it's on fire around him going, this is my first fucking month! What? Give me a break! Jesus! I feel so sorry for Darren Fletcher in this. He's
I'm trying to get the youth players up here, and there's someone going, hang on, we're on $500 million a week now.
What do you need? I'm on 60 grand a year. Sorry, Darren. Forget it. You didn't get a new contract. It was an absolute smokescreen. I don't know if it was a smokescreen or if it's a separate thing, because transfers are still happening. PR is still happening. Although United aren't doing a great job. Look at this. This brief about this players have all had a rest. Cheers, Man United Twitter account. Wow. But again, we're not mad at United's social media manager, who is probably had diarrhea for about 4 days in a row at this point.
I feel bad for them guys.
Yeah, because this isn't the person whose fault it is. Juan Martinez says, if the ESL players can't play national or in the Premier League, who's to say they won't leave for other clubs? If Rashford, Mason, etc. go to West Ham, Man United will go under. Well, there is that. That's why the Premier League are saying what they're saying, because it's maximum possible punishment for all involved. Now we'll leave it up to you kind of thing.
But on top of that, they could just do different, the UK teams against the Spanish, Italian. The World Cup is those three nations that are in it. The players that play for that's the World Cup. They'll do their own international tournament that's a bit more. Well, I mean, in the NBA, they have the All-Star game. Yeah. It'll be the same kind of stuff. This one's the World Cup.
Super League All-Star game.
The Super League All-Star game, and that's the World Cup.
Yeah.
That's the equivalent to the World Cup, where you're playing with
skill contests and shit.
Yeah, I think that I don't think that those are the worries, because they'll just create something new. They're worried about this UEFA thing and all this. They've just created a new league. They're not going to be bothered about if you can't play international football.
Yeah.
It's all about the economics of it. How much money... There's a fine line between it, because you say move to West Ham. They aren't... The wages in the Premier League will go down significantly if this goes through. They're going to be... The Super League clubs are going to go massive. They're going to be more the $500,000 a week kind of things. The Premier League's going to drop down to the average being 50, 60, 70k a week. Now, there'll be some players that end up doing that to play international football. But there's also got to be, I can do this for 2 years earn a fortune. Look what Oscar did, going to China.
Yeah, you think that...
And he kind of came out and said,
Hulk and Oscar and all these people to go to China and Russia.
I think we're forgetting that these guys have come from... There's a lot of Premier League footballers that come from absolutely nothing. And if you offer them this unbelievable contracts, it's very, very hard to turn down for as much as your morals are. There's always a price. Yeah. And I think that we're getting to that point where they would have to pay that price, and I think they would do. There's only so much they can do when there's that much money on the table.
Yeah, let's get through some more of your super chats then.
Yeah.
Thank you for sending them in. If you want to send them in, we'll read them all out. Abdullah Ibrahim says, Perez came out in an interview saying that Real Madrid have lost 400 million euros. He blames COVID, but it only helped expose how he and some of the new money clubs made football transfers unsustainable long term. The lack of financial fair play is also to blame. There are tons of things to blame here. We spoke about some of it before. We've heard a lot of people talking about the Premier League's involvement in this, the Football League's involvement in this, and UEFA as well. These sort of fit and proper persons checks have just completely failed. I don't think the Premier League ever expected that we're not even going to involve you anymore. We're over here somewhere. UEFA are like, right, let's get them in, let's get the money in, big it up. 300 million a week versus 600 million a week, whatever it is. Actually, no, we're just going over here. We can see you. It's still the same sport, kind of, but we don't even need you anymore. I don't think they expected that. But again, like you said, the lack of financial fair play, which means that these big clubs can get into ridiculous amounts of debt. It's all gone into making this happen. Joe as well, Cucurio, says, no need for new stadiums. Plenty of stadiums in the US and around the world that will gladly host these games. The initial payments are for debts and transfers. That's a great point. There's no guarantee that these games will be played in the stadiums of the teams playing in those games.
No, not the slightest.
DMG Studio, they can replace UK fans with American and Asian fans. I mean, they can. And also, let's be honest, as much as, the match-going fan is a crucial part of the match day experience, as far as the owners are concerned, that's 4 million a week or whatever it is that United earn, which is great.
Yeah.
But if you can make 10 times that, catering to fans in different countries, because this, 65 million people in the UK?
It's nothing.
There's nothing. There's nothing. And fair enough, there's plenty of fans around the world. Great. That's fantastic. And everyone's a Manchester United fan. Or, everyone who's a Man United fan is a Man United fan regardless of where they're from. But to the owners, they just see numbers. And people who turn up at 75,000.
I mean,
is that it?
You've seen
fucking 500 million, in Asia.
Even coming to the UK where it's a small base there. There's been NBA games here that have sold out, and they're not die-hard NBA fans.
No.
They go, this is great. The proper clubs, the proper teams are here.
Yeah.
They just come to watch an NBA game because it's different.
Yeah.
And same with the NFL. They've sold out Wembley 3 times.
Yeah.
They sold out Wembley for a baseball game.
Yeah.
And no one cares about baseball over here.
No one even knows the fucking rules of baseball.
So
if you went upstairs, everyone in this office loves sport to some degree. A lot of us love more than one sport. No one in this office could tell you the rules of baseball.
No.
You hit it, innings.
But if it was at Old
Fourth
Trafford,
base.
you'd probably go, why
Yeah,
not?
give it a go.
And that's the thing, that's where it gets to, where people just go, we'll go and watch that.
Yeah. Abdullah Ibrahim, continuing from what he said before, I can only see fan or community ownership of all clubs in Europe as the solution to this issue, along with real financial fair play. Me too. How we get to that point is the almost impossible question, isn't it? Because Germany, the way they did it is they went, before anyone gets bought, we're doing this.
Yeah.
No one can get bought. Now trying to go from Chelsea, United, Liverpool, let's not forget Leicester, let's not forget, Sheffield Wednesday, Leeds, Wolves, who are sort of, it's all well and good looking at the clubs like United, who are the ringleaders in this, who are the most disgusting of any of them. But there are tons of teams in the Football League who are owned by multimillionaires and billionaires, and we have to rein all of that back in. What we're going to say, you have to sell 51% of your shares over the next 3 years, otherwise what?
And the other thing is, even if you legislate to say, look, no club in the UK can be owned, it has to be 51%. And we said it before, George, you give them 5 years to sell them.
Yeah.
You've got to find £1.5 billion worth of people to buy Manchester United.
I think you'd get it, In
would,
5 years, you'd get it.
Of fans, though.
Well, no, because it's not. I don't know how it works, but
again,
doesn't it have to be? It's just maximum payments, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think no one can own more than a certain amount of shares.
But still, that's
it's going to be difficult.
How to get that back for
Yeah.
all the clubs? That's a lot of cash to find from places.
Yeah, because also let's not forget there are some clubs like Manchester United, although it's slightly different because our value is worth a lot more than our debt. But there are plenty of clubs whose debt is worth more than their value.
Yeah.
So now you're not, I'm using Sheffield Wednesday as an example, but let's imagine Club A in the Championship have 200 million worth of debt. Club A has a market value of 48 million pounds. So now we have to find almost 300 million pounds worth of investors to get rid of the debt and to buy this club when it's not worth that at all, and there isn't enough fans to do that. So it's going to be very, very difficult to implement or even find a way to do this 50+1 thing. As much as I would love it, let's see how we go. But I think, to me, stopping this is the first port of call, and we'll try and address the history that we've already fucked afterwards. Aditya Gautam says, I want Harry to twat Woodward like the Greek police. The audacity of these people to treat Ollie and the players the way they are is unacceptable. It completely disregards the process the progress Ollie's made and hard work of the players and coaching staff. Mohammed Jabbar says, most of us from Asia lose quality sleep and stay up very late on a consistent basis to watch our favourite team play. It meant something, and now our club is wrong with greed. Yeah, exactly. Like, people are putting in sacrifices everywhere to watch Manchester United, and people and this sort of umbrella thing of, let's not worry about it because they'll just sell it off to Asia, which would be nice for some fans to see, but that's just not the way football is, and people are already putting in, like I said, time, staying up till 4, 5, 6 a.m. every weekend to watch Manchester United. Like, exactly, and it is just wrong. Dan Parker, if this doesn't happen, is our United name tarnished? I think just a bit, mate. How do true and honest fans forgive this? Football is dead. Well, there's that side of things, isn't there? Like, let's say we fix this. I say fix this, stop this to a certain extent, and go with what is like you mentioned, pretty shitty UEFA Champions League format that they want to push. Where do we go from here? Like, I'll be honest, like the Super League stuff, in my chest and in my head, and where how you feel things, I can't imagine being asked about it. I can't imagine liking it and watching it and cheering for it. And I'm not just saying that from like I can't do this anymore perspective, but genuinely how I feel about this is I don't want to do this. I don't want to watch this. I don't want to care about this. Like, and even if it doesn't happen, there's a part of me that thinks United have tried to fuck everything here.
There is that. I said the only potential silver lining about any bit of this is the fact that people are now kind of realising what had gone on with the Glazers, and I think there's going to be a lot of I told you so. There's going to be a lot of people that say, we told you this was going to be the Glazers. I mean, we've seen other people saying, we've told you this is what Newcastle want, and this is what Mike Ashley wanted, something like this. He's not good for the club. We told you this is what the American owners. We told you this is why we shouldn't just be letting anybody buy these clubs. There's going to be a lot of I told you so's, and if this does get stopped and something does come in, there's a chance that if this gets stopped, that the Glazers, like we've all said, has this been their plan since the start? If this doesn't go through, does that mean that they go, well, let's get rid of it now? And maybe there is that silver lining that if for some way we do stop this, this is how they leave. We've all looked at how it happens, and we've looked at, you heard Gary Neville speak last night and go, look, the reason he kind of didn't speak out to the Glazers was the alternative was the sports washing. That's the alternative buy of Manchester United, is that someone from Saudi Arabia buys us. That's the alternative.
The most likely
alternative. But now maybe there's something else. Maybe there is, someone steps in and someone realises how they do it. I said, we don't know how they're going to do it, how they can try and take this back, and think everyone in government's trying to figure that out.
I'd love to give a few £100 towards owning Manchester United. Though,
of course you would. I think everyone would. I think that's the thing, but it's how they manage to control that. And I think that's the big question now, is if this goes through, what happens next? If this doesn't go through, what happens next? Because the Premier League will never be the same again now. I think that all the other clubs realise that the Glazers and Abramovich and the City owners and everything like that, they're at this level. They're at the level of let's just get as much as we can.
Fuck it all off for
cash. There is no loyalty. And even Barcelona and Real Madrid, and everyone's noticed that that's it now. They've done that. There's there's no morals behind this. So hopefully there's something there. But again, it's figuring that out. How they do it is going to be shocking. It's going to be interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, we've got an update here from Sky News. This is breaking in the last few minutes. They've said a court in Madrid has ruled that UEFA and FIFA must not impose sanctions on clubs or players taking part in the European Super League until it fully considers the case, which, I mean, I guess kind of makes sense. Legally, we have to look at things before you just start punishing people. But what that may do is stall any possible punishment that they can put in place in the meantime until it's too late. So we'll have to keep up on that. We've got our next story coming up as well, because we've still got a couple of bits to get through.
We'll go through those we'll go through two super chats first.
Okay.
Mad to say, but probably the only way to get fan ownership is government intervention. Buy the clubs on behalf of the fans, repay the government. Again, whether they can do that, my worry is...
Can they afford that?
Can they afford that? And the other thing is, do the Glazers just go, well, let's take this Manchester United brand and move it somewhere? We don't have to be. If we're not in the Premier League, because we don't need that, we're not in the Champions League, we don't need FIFA, UEFA, let's just put us in Dallas. Yeah. Let's
sell Old Trafford to the land that Old Trafford's on. We can sell that to a building company, and they can put flats up there, and we'll take it to Dallas. Who knows? We've got a couple more super chats.
P. Savage said, the chants, the funny ones, the proud ones, the bragging ones, the insulting ones, we've been deprived of those for over a year now. Now it'll be forever. It's just little things like 20 times, little things like that. There might not be, we're talking about the chance of 20 when it's coming. There might never be a chance for that to happen again, because we won't be playing in that competition, and that seems very, very changed.
Yeah. Detwork says, given the impact on players' careers if UEFA and FIFA threats are carried through, would players be able to sue the clubs for breach of contract or something? Maybe. But these are all the things we need to work out. Like, we're in unprecedented territory here. I'm sure everyone at Man United is looking over those contracts. Everyone at the FA, everyone at the Premier League is looking over players' contracts, work contracts, because that's another thing. It's not just... I know it's a closed brand and it's private business, but these are still like workplaces in Europe, and some of them in the European Union. There are laws on what you can do with people. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how this all pans out. We've got another story coming up next. This is a big one as well, because there's been a lot of talk about the players getting together, a lot of talk about who is going to sort of come out and speak against this. Well, there has been and there will be a captains meeting that's going down with basically all of the captains for the Premier League teams, including the 6 involved in the Super League, because before we had this sort of owners meeting, this Premier League meeting with the 14 teams. This is Jordan Henderson who is fronting this, Harry Maguire as part of it as well. They're all going to be having a meeting to discuss how we go forward as captains. So let me get into some of this article a little bit. Jordan Henderson has called an emergency meeting of the Premier League captains to discuss the breakaway European Super League. The Liverpool skipper, whose own club is one of the 6 English sides that has signed up for the competition, is set to lead the players' response to the plans that have rocked football. Henderson, 30, has been long seen as a trusted, respected figure among the top flight footballers. There are also reports in German publication Bild on Tuesday that Liverpool were feeling increasingly doubtful about the Super League project because the amount of anger from the fans. Oh, did you not fucking know that this was going to happen? England international Henderson led the players' response to the NHS crisis, which was another good thing that we saw over the summer. His meeting is likely to discuss a way forward for players who will come under the microscope this weekend. As sportsman, this is from the Daily Mail, unfortunately, but they've obviously got the news together. Manchester United stars had an emergency briefing with Executive Chief Vice Chairman Ed Woodward on Monday, which is the one that Harry Maguire reportedly locked horns with Ed Woodward on. But this meeting is obviously a very important thing, a crucial thing. Where do we come out the other side of this? If they come out and go, football is about progress, let's see how things go, we don't want to do anything that's going to upset the fans. If they do that, there's a way they can toe the line here to make it look like they're not asked, or make it look like they're against this, but actually don't really say a whole hell of a lot. If they come out and do what certain people have done and say, we don't want this, football is about earning the right to be at the top table, not being given it on a platter, we don't want to play in this tournament, that would be pretty massive, wouldn't it?
It needs to be all of them. It needs to be, it needs to be the power of everyone together saying we're not doing this. I think that for as much as, Patrick Bamford was fantastic last night, the way he spoke, and some of the players have been brilliant the way they spoke about this.
Yeah.
but you have to have everyone from every single club on the same page of this is what we're doing. Because I think if people have said, there's been a couple of comments there saying players do have the power.
Yeah.
And I think that if they can come out and say that, then there isn't, because there is no Super League without the play. For as much as the clubs can do this, as much as the clubs go, there is no Premier League without us. There's definitely nothing if these players don't play. If the top players aren't there, it makes the whole big thing, the whole marketing campaign behind the Super League is the best players every week.
Well, that's an interesting thing, though.
If the players aren't there, that's it done. This marketing campaign doesn't work. If you don't have Paul Pogba, Lionel Messi, Mbappe,
Rashford,
Haaland, all these players potentially there. If every single player in the players' union comes out and says, "We ain't doing this. This isn't happening. We want the all-way system. It needs to be merit-based. I don't care how much money you're spending. We'll make enough money doing this the old way. Let's scrap this." Then they'll have to think. But it's going to take a lot to do that because they are risking their career. It only takes the first one to get sacked, and they're risking their careers. They're risking it because these guys have the power. They pay their wages, and if you step that away, if you lose that, there's only so long you can play football for. And if you're 21 and you're hearing this and you've not made that much money yet, and you might be going on to your next contract, that's a big thing to say. No, I'm going to scrap Manchester United. If you're Dean Henderson, who's on good money, he's done okay. Dan James. What do I do here? Do I quit Manchester United? Because that's essentially what I'm doing. I'm going to quit playing for Manchester United. I'm going to quit my job, and there is no alternative because the alternative is a lot less than I would have ever earned.
Yeah.
Am I going to? I was looking after my family for the next 20 years with this career. Next 100 years. If I step away from that, then that's a lot of pressure. And I think if they can do it, it would be fantastic, and I'm hoping they do. Yeah,
and also the one good thing about this is because this isn't like when the Premier League first started, and it kind of got to this point anyway. But during the 80s and the early 90s, football went from being certainly in the 60s. You play football, then you finish playing football, then you got another job.
Yeah.
And even up to the 80s and up to the advent of the Premier League was when it really changed. When you were set for life, you could be. Lee Grant is set for life. Yeah. He's played one game for Manchester United, and he's a Man United player who is set for life. Like that didn't used to be the case. The one good thing about that being the case now is the likes of, I know Neymar's at PSG, so it's slightly different, but Ronaldo, Messi, Pogba, Rashford, Haaland, whoever it may be, all the biggest stars in Europe who are the ones that could really change this are set for life, and their kids are set for life, and their charities are set for life. They are at a point where they maybe could do this, and it is the ones, like you said, like Dean Henderson, who's like, he's on this upward trajectory. He could be on 150, 170, 200 grand a week in the next 5 years, but he hasn't really made that yet. Do I sacrifice what is probably another 50 million quid over the next 10 years or more, likely more, for the sake of, a bit of morals that actually I might just get thrown out and never come back into this? So it'll be worth seeing, but hopefully, the big players have enough money already that they can put themselves on the line a little bit here and say, actually, fuck this. We've got a few super chats. We'll come to some of your normal chats as well. It's not just super chats to read out, but we've got to make sure we get through all of those. How many times this is from Abhishek. He said, how many times have the so-called Super Leagues played 0-0 draws after big weeks of hype? Big fixtures doesn't always mean quality football. Absolutely right. I mean, it almost goes without saying. You forget that this is just going to be... are they going to be able to sell the rights to Inter Milan versus Tottenham every single year in 6, 7, 8 years' time when we've seen it twice last year? We've seen it twice the year before. We've seen it twice the year before. They're not great fixtures. They're two teams that are, good teams. But one of the reasons why Man United Barcelona is so massive is because you don't see it all the time. Stephen Kilgariff saying, Joe selling the house and living in a tent in Jay's garden, and I'll throw it all in just to own a seat at Old Trafford. Yeah, exactly. That's what we'll do when we buy the club. Mood Swing Gaming says, if they force it through, the players should just stand there and refuse to play in a match. Bryce, if there is a turnaround, I want the big six to be severely punished and not just fines. Well, that remains to be seen as well. That's 2-3 steps away yet, isn't it? We need them to put an end to this somehow. Then we look at how do we punish them for what they've done so far. Dan Parker said, have a drink on me, you deserve it. Thank you very much for your super chat. Thank you to everyone for your super chats. Mossab E as well says, I think the reality is, boys, that this has been planned for years, so they definitely have worked out all the legal issues before the announcement. Well, there's that, isn't it?
That's the big thing, is that you're looking at UEFA's and Premier League's lawyers up against JP Morgan's lawyers. And I think JP Morgan have got some of the best. They've probably done all right. They probably got the right guys to do all this.
You think they know what they're doing?
I think they do.
Probably.
They deal with enough money to know what they're doing with this. So that is the worry, is that this isn't fighting some lads, down the road that's got, we found a lawyer. Here we go. He'll sort it out. Yeah. This is, they'll have the best lawyers in the world being paid the most amount of money. Remember, UEFA got done by City's lawyers this year. Like, that's just
by themselves.
Just by
themselves.
Let alone
Cities and Chelsea's and Liverpool's and United's.
And everybody's. Yeah. There's a little bit of that is the worry, is that there's a lot of money getting spent on doing this. And is it insurmountable that they're just going to keep throwing money at it? Because there's the chance of it paying off is greater than that. If they just keep spending money, this fake money that kind of bought Manchester United in the first place, and the way that this JP Morgan thing's working, where they're going to lend it, but it's not really lent, and it's, they'll pay back over the next 40 years. Is that just how they're going to keep doing it? We'll throw money at, more lawyers and things like that, and we'll win that way.
Yeah, because what actually happens is the club's just going to more debt. Like, we talk about all this debt. If you're getting more loans, that is debt.
Yes.
I know you've got money in the bank, but your debt still increase. Perez is talking about all this debt. It's still going to be there, only more. This is from Sky Sports, and it moves on to our next topic quite nicely, actually. The club's responding to what we've seen so far. And this is from Cave, who works for Sky Sports. He said that the anger of the 14 clubs is not directed at the big 6 clubs, but at their owners and executives, which kind of goes without saying, but it's good to see that, this isn't Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's fault. This isn't probably even Ed Woodward's fault, although he's on the cusp, isn't he? He ties that line. But these decisions, whether anyone agrees with them or not, are being done by the owners and the executives, which Ed Woodward is part of. The point is, what I'm saying is, this is from as high up as it can possibly be. No one is mad at Marcus Rashford for this, or Kieran McKenna for this. This is the higher up it goes, the more blame is given.
The little bit of Klopp's kind of when he lost it last night. I think Klopp was annoyed because it felt like the attack was on Liverpool Football Club, and that attack usually is when you attack, you go out against it, it's against the players and the fans and things like that, and that's where I'm disgraced by Liverpool Football Club. It's not that. It's the owners that take the target, and I'm glad that these big 6 and the 14 Premier League clubs have been said that it's not that. It's I'm not happy with the Glazers and FSG. Yeah. They're the ones we don't want back in. Manchester United and Old Trafford and the history and the players and the fans and the manager will welcome them back. Same with City, same with Chelsea. But those owners and the CEOs and whatever, we don't want them back. And what we can do is we need to stop them. Yeah.
It's funny as well, at the end it says, they want the 6 clubs to stay in the league, but the feeling is that certain people from the 6 clubs would not be welcome back at the Premier League again. I mean, I wonder who those certain people are. Yeah. Maybe it's the Glazers, etc. We've got a few more super chats as well. Juan Martinez says the Super League is overconfident at how invested international fans are with their clubs. Only Man United was on 20 years ago in Canada. Now they're all on TV. There's a point. The generation of people in India and China and Canada and USA and Mexico that were first exposed to the Premier League, like he said, 20 years ago. Before that, you didn't get to see them. The fan base has grown exponentially in that time. But back when they first grew, these fan bases exploded to largely where they are now. They were the only options. You couldn't watch Leicester versus West Ham. And I'm not saying that Leicester are going to be as big as United anytime soon, but the sort of the way that things have been absorbed across the world is constantly evolving, and the potential for everyone to love Man United forever isn't quite as certain as it once was, and that's something definitely worth paying interest to, because over the next 20 years, people might just go, all right, fuck off then.
The only thing that I think is that it's the same thing with basketball and stuff here. Yeah. Every basketball game's on TV in the UK now. You can watch them all, can't you?
Pretty much, yeah.
So, but you'd still go to, if at Old Trafford they kitted out and the Lakers versus the Celtics were on, you're probably going to watch.
Yeah.
And there'd be a lot of people that would spend £100 a ticket, and that's what they're looking at. They aren't bothered about people emotionally invested in one club. They're bothered about people to be a tourist kind of fan.
To the brand.
And go, that's one game I'll watch. And I'll go to that and I'll spend £500 for that experience.
And let alone when it's the final and it's on pay-per-view and you have to pay an extra £30 to watch the Champions League final. We can commend Sky and people like Gary Neville potentially for what they've said over the last couple of days, and I agree with it, a lot of it. It was Sky Sports that tried to charge you 15 quid to watch West Brom versus Burnley.
Yeah.
It was Sky Sports that pay-per-viewed games during a global pandemic for people who couldn't go and watch their teams. So they aren't much better than this. They are just on the wrong end of it for once.
It's BT Sport and Sky that took the Champions League away from ITV.
Exactly.
They spent the money and did that. So that is, again, this is the whole thing with it all, is that we need to get away from the hypocrisy of it all.
Yeah.
We need to get away from UEFA and FIFA against this lot. This is wrong, and we can't just... Because that's the problem that people have kind of done at the minute is we know this is wrong. We know that UEFA, FIFA, and the way this has been done in the past is also wrong. We need to figure this out. But the one thing, the immediate threat is with these owners taking it away and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. We've got another super chat here from Sushrut. Our primary job is to maximise our revenues and profits. The wider good of the game is a secondary concern. Of course, that's how it's being treated at the moment. Revealing quotes from an unnamed board member. Apparently,
I heard that one yesterday.
I mean, what the fuck?
That's scary. That's scary that clubs that have got so much history have got even Manchester City. Forget the jokes have been. I saw some a banner outside there today saying Manchester City from 2008 till 21. They've had fans for years. They've had their club is still quite historic.
Yeah.
And the one thing is that they've looked after those fans for years and things like that. They've not just... And to just disregard that and disregard the fact that how the Manchester City being there impacts all the local teams and all that kind of stuff, and how they spend money, and that means how kids can play football and their facilities and everything. Yeah. To disregard all that is disgusting. Yeah,
Aaron Quinn, rumours of the clubs getting nervous, the two clubs that won't shake are United and Madrid because Perez and Glazer are leading. I can't see Perez shaking and wavering on this. He's all in, isn't he? He's tied his nuts to the horse and hopes it doesn't run away at this point. The future is grim regardless of the outcome. Yeah, when we've kind of talked about that a little bit, haven't we? Adit Gupta, unfollow these teams on social media with their hundreds of millions of followers. Maybe they'll stop. The problem is hundreds of millions of people won't unfollow them. We can get... If there is a movement to do that, I'm quite happy to do that. I'm quite happy to show support in any way I can. They aren't going to lose even 5% of their following. It's been so difficult to ever get anything like that off the ground before. The Unfollow United thing that happened last year had, a few 100,000, was it, that they lost? It was
but then they get
a tiny proportion, and that's not to knock any attempts to do that, but when you look at the outcome of these things, it's so hard to put together a meaningful protest, that, especially a social media protest. I think it has to be done in person. It has to be done on TV. It has to be done in a way that may affect them. And if Sky Sports and BT, people who maybe they aren't relying on as their primary source of income for this, are certainly going to be people that they want to sponsor this. If those sorts of people come out against it and continue to do what they're doing now, that may well affect them. Please like the video if you like what we're doing here, trying to share what's going on around the Super League. Obviously, no one likes the Super League, but give the video a like because it helps out the channel a hell of a lot. So make sure you hit the like button. Let's see if we can get to 1,000 likes. That would be fantastic. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Marcus Rashford as well, because I'll say somewhat cryptic, or not particularly cryptic, but not the most aggressive stance. Yeah. He has come out and spoken seemingly against this Super League. For anyone who hasn't seen, he tweeted a picture of the quote that's on the banner from Sir Matt Busby at Old Trafford at the moment that says, "Football is nothing without the fans." Do we need a bit more than that, would be my question. Because it's good that he's done it, but it's cryptic at best, isn't it?
It is. It's, again, though, it can't just be one. It can't just be Marcus Rashford. True. For as much as, Marcus Rashford doing all he's done this year, that could be one, because he's not gonna lose his job. Whereas now, just being one, if he came out and said this is ridiculous and this is wrong, we need to look at what the fans want and all this, he could just lose his job. He could just lose that and that'd be him. Mm-hmm. I think it needs to be all the players. It would be a stance if there was something where every single player put out a statement on their social media, every single player of these top clubs that said, we stand against this, or something. Or they came out and said, we ain't playing football until this is sorted. Yeah. That would be strong. I think Rashford doing it. Rashford's spot on. Rashford knows the deal with that. He knows exactly what he's doing. He knows that banner is for that to be up all season, to be put up by the owners and stuff, and to know that that's there, to go against that this season, shocking.
That was a suggestion by, was it the TRA that suggested that quote be it was certainly fan oriented anyway. So he knows what he's doing there, because there's also been suggestions on social media of I think it's the Stretford End Flag Company, or I'm not exactly. They put all the stuff up on the around the Stretford End. They were doing polls yesterday on social media to whether we should just take everything down. So he knows that there's more to this than just picturing that quote. And here's the other thing as well. This meeting of the captains and these sorts of things haven't taken place fully yet. So this is just, I'm doing this regardless, and here's maybe more to come once we've all decided what we're doing. Because like you said, just Marcus Rashford by himself isn't going to fix it, despite what he has done over the last 12 months, maybe to the contrary. Maybe he will be able to fix it. But it's good that he's putting this out off his own back, more than pretty much any other United player has done. Bruno made a similar hint, but on a story, and it was a quote of someone else. This is Marcus Rashford essentially saying this needs to be something the fans want, and currently it clearly isn't.
Yeah, and it's been the case across a couple of clubs. I know that Liverpool have said that their flags and banners in the Kop are coming down this weekend and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. I've not heard of many others, but I think City are doing the same kind of thing. And that's about all you can do at the minute. And I think that it's interesting to see them doing this without fans in the stadiums. And it's interesting to see whether they would have done this with fans in the stadiums, because not just for the fact of, that people couldn't not buy season tickets and stuff, but if you'd have had fans there, there'd been fans on the pitch, there'd have been everything, there'd have been trash in the ground.
Imagine this game at the weekend. Are we home or away?
We're away.
Slightly different prospect, but you could imagine. I mean, if you saw United fans and Leeds fans before the game protesting together, I mean, there'd be a pretty clear message there, wouldn't there? And I wouldn't be surprised to see something like that on this occasion, because it's bigger than anything else, isn't it?
Yeah, and they think they're lucky that there's no fans.
Yeah. And they're so lucky there's no fans.
I mean, we say it's lucky. This test has shown that we can do it without fans. There's been a lot of that. Yeah. And I said, you look at
for the owners. From the owners' perspective.
I did another look, and you've seen how United since 2009 to 2019. Their matchday revenue has actually dropped by 4 million, and the percentage has gone from 40% of the revenue of the club down to, I think it was something like 20%.
Yeah,
they have kept removing away the need for matchday going fans and how that makes money, and that whether it was said to be, this is a clever thing to do, because if something goes wrong and people can't do it, or whatever, this is it. But what they're showing is that we can do this without you. Yeah. We can do this without here. We can make a lot of money, and that's the worrying bit. That's that this has been planned for a long time, and this is Ed Woodward's commercial planning and stuff, and how people have kind of gone around and gone, oh, he's doing some dodgy dealings, and how he's done this, and he's done great with Adidas and stuff. This was all maybe setting up for this, where we're not going to rely on the core audience of the fans. We're not going to rely on the 75,000 people that go there. We're going to rely on sponsors that just need eyeballs, whether that's people in the stadiums, outside the stadiums, on Sky, on a pay-per-view thing. We just need eyeballs. And if you can do that, there you go. So there's how we're going to make our money. And that's the worrying thing. There's a comment there saying, are we going to see Adidas and Nike back out? I don't think so. I think that,
they haven't said anything yet, have they?
But
the two biggest sports manufacturers in the world, yeah.
They're too big, and they know that this is too big as well. Manchester United is spending 750 million on Manchester United is a lot of money that they've done. They're not just going to scrap that because of this, because they know that even if this goes ahead, they're going to need to sponsor, and they know that it's going to work again, and there'll still be people that buy shirts, and there'll still be people that do that.
Because otherwise, it opens the door for New Balance or Reebok or whoever to come in and be the biggest. Ian Hamilton said, Ronaldo and Messi must speak, otherwise they are making this happen. They have the power and the influence to move things with their followings. I'm hoping Sir Alex speaks, but maybe at his age he doesn't have the energy. Well, he has spoken about it already, isn't he, Sir Alex? A couple of days ago he voiced his opinion on it, and obviously isn't a fan of it. In terms of Ronaldo and Messi, we wait and see. Yeah. Because, again, of all people, do you need the extra fucking few million? Like, certain people, start of your career, I get it. It's hard to put aside what may be the future of your family for generations for the sake of standing on your own against something. Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi, you're close to retiring anyway. Like, let's be honest, even if you have to retire for the sake of this, you have enough in the bank, you have enough commercial going forward, no matter what. These are the sorts of people that, for me, there's no excuse for them to not come out against this. Unless, of course, they like it, which, remains to be seen. Cosplay Gamer says, how does this affect non-league clubs like Paddock? I mean, short term, I guess not particularly a lot. But in terms of the idea of the football pyramid, as we said before, it affects everything. Like the chance of a team going from being in the conference or League Two to being a championship team, a Premier League team, winning a cup, getting in Europe, it just completely affects everything. And the money side of things, clubs just maybe won't have any money anymore because the money that they used to get from the Premier League will be massively removed.
And that's it, is that it's not just that Super League comes out, Premier League loses a bit of money. So does the Championship, so does League One, and it drops down. So it means that these clubs that are at level 14 or whatever and trying to grow up and they keep moving and they do well, they're not making as much money. Things like the FA Cup we mentioned before, if they get through that round, there's not as many eyeballs, there's not as much money in there, so it's not as beneficial to get that way, which means that it affects every single thing. And that's the really big worry with this all. I think that, do you know what, if the Premier League could guarantee the same amount of money and these lot and United and them lot just went and did their own thing, I think a lot of people would go, just do it now. I really don't care. But the problem is that they know that those 6 clubs and the 3 in Spain and whatever are so integral for all the money that comes in. And for as much as they're going to do this PR spin and say, we'll donate money, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen to the extent that it does now. It's not going to be the same kind of thing. You're going to lose the magic, the prestige of the FA Cup and little things like that you can't quantify, that you can't just put a price on. And that will mean that sponsors go away, and that will mean that everything goes away. And that's where that's the frightening bit of it all. Yeah,
because not everyone is sponsored by MasterCard and by Adidas.
No.
Some people are sponsored by Jeff's DIY and, Tony's Bingo around the corner. When the potential for those brands to not be seen by a slightly bigger audience and all these things change, it's not just big companies losing out here. It's small companies, small clubs, everything. So it's not, people at Adidas, we don't care, we're going to the Super League. Well, like I said, Jeff's DIY ain't.
No.
And now he's never got a chance of whoever playing a Premier League team in the FA Cup because they don't care anymore.
Now his couple of grand he throws at a non-league club
that
would have potentially got to the FA Cup, that is that risk that he does, and the next minute I'm on BBC and great.
Yeah.
That's not there anymore.
No.
So there's the little
so many things that remain to be seen. A few more super chats as well. When you have a ticker on the New York Stock Exchange, revenue always takes precedent over the fans. As disgusting as it is, shareholders are worth more than fans to the owners, of course, and they've said as much. AAO, the ownership standards in the FA Cup, for the FA and the Premier League have led us here. Clubs like Bury, Bolton, Newcastle denied opportunities while top 6 gets unregulated rule. James Powley says, when is the captain's meeting again? It's scheduled and they've been called to this meeting. I don't know when it is, but hopefully if it's today, we'll be getting more quotes out tonight. We'll be live again at, I believe, 9:30 tonight. So we'll be bringing you any update from that captain's meeting as it comes out. Make sure to check that out. Someone said, James again said, it would be great if the players in the next match would swap shirts at kickoff to show solidarity. Hopefully something will happen. I don't know what it will be in particular, but something. Saw a post on Reddit, according to James, for a protest against the Glazers outside Old Trafford on Saturday. You guys have a platform. Spread the news. Any protest that does happen, I would gladly be a part of. The one issue was that, last time there was protests, wasn't there, a couple of years ago? What was it? One person turned up, and that's the problem with stuff when it gets organised online. It's a different people to the people who are actually so. We'll take into account anything that gets put together, see what the response is like, and anything we can do to help, I'm more than happy to do. So
absolutely, I think that the worry, again, the bit about all this is that arranging protests in this time and stuff, going to the stadium and things is very difficult.
Well,
and the fact that you're not in the stadium and there isn't matches going on means there's something else. When things have happened before, there was a tangible thing. And I think that the thing that kind of, again, people are so, the protest happens is that I think people have kind of got in the head. They don't care about the people in Manchester going to the games. They don't care about the people around Manchester. If we protest and say we don't like this, they're going, this isn't for you. That's this isn't for you to like. This is for the people outside of Manchester and of outside of England and of a different audience and are more casual fans and are more looking. They want to watch Paul Pogba, not Manchester United. That's what they're more after.
Yeah, the people that turn up to a protest outside Old Trafford, the owners look at them and go, "We knew you'd be upset.
Yeah,
see you later."
We don't care.
Yeah,
you don't buy a match. You don't buy a program. You don't buy a shirt anyway.
Yeah,
you just pay your season ticket. That's it.
Ross Murphy said, "Who's going to be the mascot? It's not going to be Fred the Red Devil. It's going to be something like Miles the Moneymaker or Craig the Cash Cow. That'd be good, wouldn't it?
It'd be some Tampa Bay Stingray thing."
Yeah, probably. Ian Hamilton, let's slightly cringe at the fact that we need Boris Johnson to help. Yeah, I mean, I'll take fucking any help. And the one thing that the government can do that obviously broadcasters can't do is change the law around sort of ownership of assets and companies that Manchester United is, unfortunately. Yeah. So, it happens to be Boris Johnson because he's the Prime Minister, but if they can make some change that would affect these things going forward in a meaningful way, then bring it on. Hopefully there's something that they can do and that they're willing to do. We all know what he's basically like Loki from Marvel. You can't trust him. That's very true. Sahaj Shetty says, "I think Mark Stein from the New York Times put it aptly. No threat of relegation, cost certainty, maximum TV profits at the cost of the spirit of football."
Yeah.
Pretty much sums it up. Cameron Williams, that doesn't happen now. This ideology of tier systems and competition doesn't happen. The same clubs go up and down. The same clubs stay in the competition. They don't get past the 5th or 6th round. I mean, it throws everything under the bus, doesn't it? Every part of football that you rely on, everything that is integral to competition as we know it, is completely ruined. And Sean Thomas, before we go, says, "So we, as fans, want Galactico signings, but don't expect clubs to follow the money. Are we for a wage or transfer fee caps now?" I mean, the term Galactico signings came from, to my understanding, Real Madrid when they were doing this sort of thing in the early 2000s. Now, that wasn't the choice of us as football fans. That was a consequence of the money put into football by broadcasters and owners and sponsors. So we want Galactico signings now because the best players cost Galactico money. Yeah. But I wish Erling Haaland cost 6 million, not 150. I don't want it to be as big as it doesn't need to be as big as it is. Football has become one of the biggest things in the world in terms of revenue. But Galactico as a term was coined by people that had much more control over the finances in football than any of us. We all wish for big signings, but they're only big because of how we've gone in the last 25 years. That
this is the whole thing as well. With everyone said UEFA and FIFA had control of it, could have controlled this in the Premier League.
Yeah.
If FIFA had have said we're going to do a transfer limit, we're going to have salary caps across the world, you can't pay any of this, then these things don't happen. Mm-hmm. But that would have taken a lot of, we're not going to make as much money.
Yeah.
This isn't going to go quite as big. The World Cup isn't going to be as big. The Champions League isn't going to be as big. The Premier League isn't going to be as big. Mm-hmm. But we do that because it controls it a bit and it kind of calms things down.
But the thing is, it could have been as big, but they just would have had to change where the money went. Because like you said, the NBA, they have a salary cap. They have rules in place to prevent things like this from happening. But they sell the rights for even more because it's the way that the system is put in place. I mean, some of that's due to, unfortunately, actually, some of the reason they can sell for so much is because there are no relegations. So that's a whole different thing. But something like a salary cap, again, how do we rein this back in? And before we go, Chris Morea says, when the Cleveland Browns left for Baltimore, the city of Cleveland sued to retain the name and colours. If the worst happens, hopefully the name's history and colours can be retained. I mean, that's another step, isn't it? Asset stripping, selling off to different companies and corporations around the world. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Right, we are going to call it at that. We'll be back at 9:30 tonight, myself and Jay, over through there on the brick for Paddock Live. There should be some big updates coming tonight. Hopefully there will be an update on this captain's meeting, as well as I believe there are some embargoed quotes coming out later tonight as well, which will hopefully explain a lot more. So make sure you tune in at 9:30 tonight for Stretford Paddock Live. Thank you very much for joining me, Alex. Thank you very much for joining us at home. Like I said, back tonight, 9:30. Make sure you check it out. Hopefully there'll be some good news and some updates on the horizon very soon. We'll see you in a bit.